Okay, my friend Jojo, good to see you. Last time, of course, I saw you live was at the DNC convention where you were rocking, your boot there. But obviously, much has changed since then, and I want to sort of really discuss so many different aspects from the beginning to the end. Analysts have noted that Kamala struggled to win over swing voters. In fact, Trump kind of ran the swing state, especially after her debate performance, where she was the one that was critiqued for not differentiating herself enough from President Biden. Regardless of whatever Trump said, the big takeaway from that debate, despite the fact everybody said that she had won, was that she did not distinguish herself. She did not differentiate herself enough from President Biden. So my question to you, Jojo, is how can Democrats refine their message to capture independence in future elections?
Well, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know that the messages were wrong. I don't know that the messaging was actually off all that much. I think one of our biggest problems was that we weren't messaging in the right places. We weren't messaging where people are consuming information. They were, they were on the podcasts and they were engaging with the Charlie Kirks and the Ben Shapiros and the Tommy Laurens and
the Joe Rogans and those
Rogans.
Two guys from Canada that have a massive podcast audience.
Yeah, Mark Cuban was doing a really good job of getting into the spaces where people consume information, independence in particular. I mean, we probably all know Joe Rogan listeners who are like, I don't agree with everything he says. I could go either way in this election. Depends on, I don't know. I'm still up for grabs. And I think that's the number one problem. I guess I do think the messaging was strong. Inherently, you've got a binary choice between a convicted felon, a criminal rapist, business fraud who, launched an attack on our Capitol to overturn the results of an election he lost, versus, a qualified, intelligent, articulate, lifelong public servant, prosecutor, female. Plus, she was offering things. He wasn't. He never tried. So I think the messages actually were good. I don't think we were occupying the right spaces to deliver them.
Well, that's certainly one way. I also think the message was wrong in certain respects. I don't think that they captured enough of the message that the silent majority, as Trump would call it in 2016, I don't think that the message resonated at all with the silent majority, with the younger white male. I thought it was completely devoid of that. And I don't know the reason why. If you watch her rallies, if you listen to certain news stations, yes, we all lived in a bubble where we thought that this, myself included, by the way, thought that this election was in the bag. I thought there was no way, based upon her momentum, the size of the rallies and so on, and as huge as they were, and as diminishing as Donald's were, he ended up capturing the entire swing vote. They knew exactly the map, and they knew exactly what they needed to do in order to pick off 2, 3, 4, 5% from certain counties and districts and states in order to run the map. And you know what? They did.
Yeah, well, let me ask you a question, though, real quick. I mean, I hear you 100%. But see, here's my problem, though. Because what was Trump offering to those guys you were just talking about? I don't think he was offering them anything other than vengeance, right?
Vengeance, grievance.
Right. Everything that's wrong with their life is someone else's fault. It's easier to blame somebody else for all of that. It's easier to take your own displeasure in your own life and put it onto somebody else. I mean, that's all he was offering. So I don't think that in terms of a message of, how you reach those people, again, he was only offering them hate and lack of accountability and a promise to return this country to some false idea of masculinity, that this guy who's painted orange and wearing lips in his shoes and a girdle is the definition of masculinity. But one of the things, again, I'm going to get back to this, because what they did, to your point about peeling off those percentages in those places, what they did that we weren't doing is, if you looked at social media at any point, every day it seemed like there was another graphic of another event that Eric Trump and Charlie Kirk and Tucker Carlson and blah, 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 blah. They were going into these, bigger towns all over the country for years with their little parade of who's who in that world. And then the regular folks come in, they attend these things, and they're thinking, well, nobody else is here. This is the message I'm hearing. These people are paying attention to me. They hear me, they see me. And then when they kind of poke at those and prod those instinctual things that he's so good at, which is like, oh yeah, I have a bad job, but it's not really my fault. It's because they gave a good job to the DEI hire, and all those things that they kept hitting, that made a difference. And then you take the Joe Rogan podcast and all those other podcasts, and that's just the sort of icing on top of that cake. And I think that Trump knew, they all knew, that they didn't actually have to offer any policy or platform. And in the debate, he didn't have to do that either.
They didn't have to do anything other than show up and say, hey, Donald Trump is here with us, right? Yep. And he turns around and he goes, I'm just going to make it better.
Yeah,
I'm just going to fix it. I can do it quickly. I can do it in 24 hours. And you know what? You don't have to give them truth. You don't have to give them policy. Here's a concept of a policy. They just feel emboldened because he's paying them attention. And here's the mistake that we Democrats made. We went back to the old playbook, thinking that the old playbook is the Bible, that, it will work every single time. Look, it worked in, 2008, it worked in 2010, in 2012, right? In 2014, it lost in 2016, but it got it back in 2018, in 2020, and 2022, but it lost in 2024. That playbook, thanks to people like Elon Musk with X, thanks to others, where they completely overshadowed Democrats on all forms of social media, from his Untruth Social to TikTok to you name it. And what he started to do is capture the young white male, who I don't know what fucking grievance they have, but they certainly have grievances, right? And especially they have grievances against young women. But they then start making and creating content, and that content went viral, and everybody's stuff started going around, and they all start liking each other. And all the red hat means is that you're part of the fraternity / sorority. And I don't want to be excommunicated from my fraternity or my sorority. I don't want to get blackballed. And so what do? You listen to only the information that's coming out in that ecosystem. As far as most of these people that I'm talking about, they didn't even know Kamala Harris's full name. Some of them actually thought that when they were getting there, that Joe Biden was still running against Donald Trump. I saw that there was somebody who interviewed this young guy. I mean, definitely, obviously from a very rural community. And he was like, I wouldn't vote for Joe Biden for all the money in the world. And he was like, wait, you meant Kamala Harris? Who? And that's not a joke. It wasn't a spoof. It's a reality. He goes, I don't care who's running against Donald Trump. I'm all in on Donald. And you say to yourself, what does this guy have in common with Donald Trump? And the answer is absolutely nothing. But it didn't matter. But I want to move on, and I wanted to then ask you, because Kamala initially enjoyed this incredible surge in battleground states, but ultimately lost that momentum. I don't know when, but she ultimately lost that momentum, and we know it because of the outcome. What do you think that Democrats need to learn from her campaign setbacks in these states? And how might they adjust strategies thinking about 2028?
I think one of the things that happened, to your point about her losing momentum, was he started taking up all the oxygen again. If you remember when the switch first happened, and that Brat Summer and the fall coconut tree stuff, she was taking up all the oxygen. And then it pivoted to JD Vance fucking couches, and then them being weird, and they were on their back heels going, I'm not weird. Brian Kilmeade is like, I like being weird. What's wrong with being weird? And it's like, we held all the power. We had the narrative, and we were taking up all the oxygen. And that's where Trump, that's how you do it, right? That's how you I don't want to say, strangle him, because I don't want to evoke violence, but like, you cut off that oxygen supply. You take up all the space in the room. And we were doing that. She was doing that successfully. And I think partly because, and I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but this is my biggest takeaway. You were at the DNC. You saw how creators were being treated. You saw the lounges and the blue carpets and all that other shit that they give creators. And she was heavily leaning into that side of the media ecosystem, again, where people are getting their information now more and more and more. And I think after the DNC, something happened where there was a shift away from that. And there was this whole weird shift towards, should she do this mainstream media interview or this mainstream media interview? But what if she does this podcast that's got, this she's talking to an echo chamber over here? And it just seemed like they moved away from that organic momentum they had in that space that drives everything else. Your point about TikTok is absolutely correct. When my son who's 15 is very actively, consumer of TikTok. And when it was Joe, he's like, Mom, I'm worried TikTok is all Donald Trump. It's all Trump.
My son and my daughter said the identical thing.
Yeah.
My son turned around because, look, we're UFC fans.
Uh-huh.
We're actually fans of Joe Rogan.
Right.
Despite his love for Donald, which then he said he wasn't even sure who he was going to endorse and so on. When Trump went on that podcast, that 3-hour podcast, in fact, Joe went at him very, very hard, asked very tough questions, and didn't accept the bullshit that so many others accept, like Sean Hannity or Tucker Carlson, right, the Weave. He didn't accept that. He really pushed back and so on. But my son said the fact that he went on Joe Rogan, and then there's a Canadian group of guys that run it out of Florida, out of like Brickell. He's going to capture those young males. And Joe Rogan has like 200 million followers. So, while, we had Beyonce and Taylor Swift and Bruce Springsteen and,
Lady Gaga,
Oprah Winfrey and Lady Gaga. We had the upper echelon. You have Robert De Niro. So you hit the entire spectrum of younger to old. That wasn't enough to offset. My son said this. It's not enough to offset Joe Rogan, because Joe Rogan, through the UFC, he's got this ability to energize people, right? Like, it's like when you're watching a UFC fight and Joe Rogan is getting into it, you almost feel like you're the guy that's in the cage, and you could anticipate. That was a mistake. Not leaning better into social media, not
Agreed.
Leaning better into TikTok, not leaning better into Instagram.
Yep.
They flooded the market 24/7. I will tell you, this Harris campaign, very much like the Trump campaign, don't get me wrong, they're both exactly the same on it. They flooded your text messages and your emails with requests for money, but there was nothing there in terms of the volume of social media by the Harris campaign as compared to the Trump campaign. Nothing.
No, and I'll tell you what else to that end, Michael. With the Trump campaign, when you're talking about, God, those Lara Loomers again, Charlie Kirk's, Ben Shapiro's, Tammy Lerner's, I call her Tammy. There's no light in between them. Like you don't even know if like these guys work for them or not, or like they're acknowledged at events, they're at events, like he's interacting with them. People in his campaign are interacting with him. Steve Bannon and Marge Green might as well be two heads of the same disgusting snake. I don't know. They're always together. So there's no light in between. And that's what we didn't do. That's what, people who consume information through someone like me or someone like Brian Tyler Cohen or whatever it is, they want to see their people interacting with the people at the top levels. They don't want to see it all watered down and muddied down through third parties and blah, blah, blah. And those people are only on mainstream media and they're only on MSNBC and NBC, CNN. That's what Republicans do. That's what MAGA does. They interweave those people more successfully than the Democrats did. And I think it's a huge lesson learned. I think that we need to really lean more, like you said, just lean heavier into that side of things, not the establishment media. That's just not where people are right now, especially not where people are getting excited. They're not getting excited watching CNN.
Right. They're not. And I'll go one step further here. What Trump does very, very well is he can read a room. And in this case, the room was the country. And what does he acknowledge? Everybody's got a grievance. Everybody's got a complaint. Everybody's got something to bitch and moan and gripe about. I don't care who you are, whether you're the richest guy in the world or you don't have 2 cents to rub together. Everybody's got a fucking gripe. And what he did is he honed in on it. It was all about grievance. And he gave them the ability. He opened the Pandora's box to being as vile, as disgusting, as nasty and racist and sexist and misogynistic and xenophobic and homophobic and transphobic, Islamophobic and anti-Semitic as you can get. Remember, just for example, the other day in Palm Beach, they had that boat regatta that was going down the intercoastal. One boat flying, and there were many of them, but one boat that they captured photos of had 2 MAGA flags on the back of the boat and directly inside 2 swastika flags. Palm Beach County, Florida. I give you another one as an example. I'm going to just put this up for you just to see, so you can see that I'm telling you the truth. All right. This is from a young lady. I got this morning when I woke up. Hey, congratulations, Michael, you woke up. That's great. You suck penises like a good Jew. And this is from a young girl. Imagine a young woman saying something. Imagine a young guy saying it. Imagine a middle or an elder woman or man saying something like this. Okay, great. You won the election. Mazel. Okay, not what I wanted. But I tell you what I do say, and I say it all the time, and I am getting a lot of slack for saying it. I still want Trump to be successful as a president, as our president, because whether you like him or you don't, whether you find him vile or you don't, whether you acknowledge, his criminal case, his civil cases, and so on, it's irrelevant. January 20th, Donald Trump will be in Washington with his hand on a Bible, being inaugurated as the 47th president of the United States. Whether you like it or not, I'm an American first and foremost. I will take country over party any day. And in fact, one of the things that I keep saying to people, you should want him to succeed. Because if he succeeds, that means that America succeeds. If America succeeds, that means we all succeed, not just the 0.1%. Now, here's the thing. None of us know what he's going to do. I mean, we've heard a lot of rhetoric, a lot of mean-spirited rhetoric. He's going to take the licenses from ABC, CBS, MSNBC, NBC, CNN, right? He's going to do away with it. I'm not so sure that's really possible. He's going to execute, for example, 4-star General Mark Milley, Nancy Pelosi, Mike Pence, Michael Cohen, whoever is on his enemies list. He's going to use SEAL Team 6 in the military to come in and you lock it up. Oh, come on, bullshit. There are still rules, there are still systems, and I highly doubt, and I do not believe that one man can actually do that. Because while he may have the House, while he may have the Senate, he also has the White House and the Supreme Court, I do believe that those type of actions, you will find members of your own party walking away and saying, not under my watch. They did it before, and I believe that they would do it again. I do not believe that he controls every single Republican. He certainly controls a number, but he does not control a plurality of the members of either chamber or the Supreme Court for that matter.
I appreciate your optimism.
I am
agree
trying to be hopeful and optimistic
yeah,
because
and
we don't know.
No, we don't. We don't know. We don't know. We can go off of what we knew for 4 years. We can go off of what he attempted to do for 4 years, and the adults in the room that are no longer in the room because none of them would endorse him. In fact, most of them warned the country against voting for him. We can also look to what he tried to do on January 6th, and we can extrapolate a lot of really strong kind of concepts of what he would try to do again. And then we also have Project 2025, which he was successful in distancing himself from. But now they're all like, oh, yeah, that's exactly what we're going to do. So we sort of have a template, a fascistic template for what he would do if he can. And I don't really think that he gives a fuck about like what kind of policy or platforms. I don't think he cares. He just wants to do the vitriolic retribution, hateful stuff. And the rest he wants to leave up to everybody else. Leave it up to Stephen Miller, leave it up to JD Vance, leave it up to what is his name? Stephen with the looks like a partially
Steve Bannon, Steve Miller.
Yeah, the other
Steve Bannon.
Yeah, Bannon if he's involved, Roger Stone if he's involved. I don't think he cares about anything else. I don't think he cares about Social Security. I don't think he cares about the Department of Education. I just think they have plenty of plans.
Okay, so wait. So let's take that. Let's break that down for 1 second because I agree with you. I don't think he does either. But I'll tell you something. The second that they start fucking with people's Social Security, he had a very good showing by individuals 65 and older, especially white males. You now tell them the institution that you've been paying in since you were 18 years of age is now no longer funded, and therefore you're not getting a check anymore. That's a real problem, which is why, again, there's a difference between the speech and then the reality. I'll go one step further here. Let's even turn around and say that you have the state of Alabama, all right, where it's a Republican member of the House. Okay. Maybe he's not really interested in having a monarch, a king, a ruler, a Führer. He doesn't want to see America's democracy. I mean, they are Americans too. Now, while the Marjorie Toilet Greens and the Lauren Boeberts and the Ted Cruz's, the Josh Hawleys, Matt Gaetz, and so on, yeah, maybe they will vote Trump's direction, regardless of even if it's to become an autocracy. I'm in, because they believe that they will be one of the oligarchs. I'm not so sure that there aren't many others that would turn around and say, yeah, now you've gone too far. I have to believe that.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right. So again, what I'm looking at right now, and I don't want to be, look, I'm just going to be who I am. What I'm looking at right now is the House of Representatives that all of them voted for the Republicans, voted for the impeachment inquiry of Joe Biden. All of them. You're talking about so-called conservatives like my Congressman Tom Kaine Jr., who is a so-called conservative, voted for an inquiry into impeaching Joe Biden, who had never done anything that even approached the neighborhood of a high crime or misdemeanor, and they knew it. But Donald Trump wanted it done, and so they did it. So they said, like they did in the 4 years he was in office, I don't agree with this, but I'm not sticking my neck out there, because everybody who stuck their neck out there in the second impeachment is now gone, right? What happened to Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger for sticking their necks out there? They were ostracized, kicked out of the party, sent into outer space, right? Mm-hmm. Anybody who does that now gets their head cut off. So I just don't see any one of them, no matter how far he would go, with all of those other tools in his toolkit, which is like, again, the Senate, the Supreme Court, a lot of federal court judges. The American people look like they gave him a mandate at this point. What Republican is going to go, I'm going to be the guy. I don't agree. Hey, guys, should we get together and like stop this guy from being a king? You don't want to do it? No, I don't want to do it. You don't want to do it? You're afraid you might die? Like, none of them are going to do it. And then I just don't see the systems holding. He's already corrupted the systems to the point where you, sir, testified in a court case that got him convicted, and those convictions could be overturned. He's corrupted all the systems.
Well, they're not going to be overturned. What I believe will ultimately happen is that there just won't be a sentencing, and there'll be no accountability. But that case doesn't go away. You can't dismiss
where Sean said he might dismiss the convictions or something.
How do you do that? Today's episode is brought to you by Ollie. Clean, fresh nutrition your dog needs in 5 flavors that they'll absolutely flip over. You don't have to be a veterinary nutritionist to know that feeding your dog real, whole foods with minimal processing is one of the best choices that you can make for their health. A perfectly portioned, whole fresh food diet has been proven to extend your pup's life by 2.5 years. And who doesn't want more time with their best friend? With absolutely no harmful fillers, no preservatives, Ollie is made in U.S. kitchens with ingredients carefully sourced from trusted growers and producers around the world. You see, because the time between Ollie's gentle cooking and your dog's chowing down is minimal, they don't need preservatives to extend shelf life. With 5 protein-first recipes like fresh beef with sweet potatoes, fresh turkey with blueberries, or fresh lamb with cranberries, you might start thinking, damn, my dog eats better than I do. And that's probably true when it comes to Ollie. So I want to be clear about something. I actually don't have a pet. I don't have a dog, but I do have a neighbor who has the absolute cutest cavapoo that goes crazy for me whenever she sees me. And by the way, her name is Luna. So here's what you need to do. First thing that you do is you fill out Ollie's 30-second quiz, and they'll create a customized meal plan based on your pup's weight, the activity level, and other health information. Ollie crunches the numbers, and then they recommend the right recipe and the daily portions for your precious pup based on hundreds of thousands of real dog results. Now, for the first-time users, Ollie will send out your pup's first box with 2 weeks. That's 2 weeks worth of meals and a guide on how to gradually switch them over to their new diet. Ollie offers 3 meal plans to choose from. You really think that this is for a human? They offer 3 meal plans to choose from. So you can choose between a full fresh plan, fresh topper plan, or a mixed plan with their freshly baked recipes for your special fur puppy. They also have treats and supplements. So look, like I said, I don't have a pup, but I promise you that your dog will love it. In fact, I have a video of Luna chowing down the very first day that I brought it over to their apartment. So let me be clear now. Ollie, they are offering a deal to let your pup taste test a personalized meal plan. So head right now to Ollie.com and tell them all about your dog and use Cohen, and you'll get 60% off your first box of meals when you subscribe today. So head to Ollie, that's OLLIE.com, and enter code Cohen, that's me, COHEN, to get 60% off your first box. Again, that's Ollie, OLLIE.com, and enter Cohen to get 60% off your first box. And they offer a clean bowl guarantee on their first box. So if you're not completely satisfied, you get your money back. Lumen, it's the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. And on the app, it lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs, and it gives you tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, your workouts, your sleep, and even stress management. All you have to do, this is crazy, all you do is you breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and you'll know what's going on with your metabolism, whether you're burning mostly fats or carbs. Then Lumen gives you a personalized nutrition plan for the day, and that's based on the measurements. You can also breathe into it before and after your workouts and your meals, so you know exactly what's going on in your body in real time. And Lumen will give you tips to keep you on top of your health game. Look, let me be clear about this. Who isn't looking for some advantage today to get the most out of the little time that we have to take care of ourselves? And this device is a game changer. And let me be clear, your metabolism is your body's engine. It's how your body turns the food that you eat into fuel that keeps you going. And because your metabolism is at the center of everything that your body does, optimal metabolic health translates to a bunch of benefits, including easier weight management, improved energy levels, better fitness results, better sleep, etc. Lumen gives you the recommendations to improve your metabolic health. And if you're a female, it can also track your cycle, as well as the onset of menopause, and adjust your recommendations to keep your metabolism healthy through hormonal shifts, so then you can keep up your energy and you can stave off cravings. So if you want to stay on track with your health this holiday season, go right now to lumen.me/Cohen to get 15% off your Lumen. That's LUMEN.me/Cohen for 15% off your purchase. Lumen makes a perfect gift too. And thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode.
I don't know.
The trial where 12 independent jurors came back with they can't, I mean, again, for him, those convictions are there. I just don't believe that there will be a sentencing or an accountability attached to it. But that case is signed, sealed, and delivered.
But again,
now we're just system. Up to, yeah. And you know what? Shame on Cy Vance. Shame on Alvin Bragg for not moving this case earlier. And shame on the others, like even Jack Smith for sitting back. Well, but really, the person who you really have to hold accountable there is Merrick Garland, someone I have criticized literally since the day after he became Attorney General. I want to just move on for a quick second and ask you this, because many in our party feel very demoralized right now after this, historic loss, seeing it as a setback for progressive causes. How do you think that the party should approach re-engineering and re-energizing the base to restore faith in the leadership? Because that's where I believe that they missed out.
They missed out on, in
leadership.
Trusting. Oh, well, here's what happens, right? So it's like the pendulum swing. I think, sadly, that yes, I understand people are demoralized, and I get it. I mean, it feels like a funeral, right? And it's going to feel like a sort of constant little funeral all the time. January 20th is going to feel like the worst day of our lives for a little while. And that's going to happen a lot. I get it. I grieve too, and I'm grieving still, but I have decided to kind of put that to the side and focus on what's ahead. And I think what we have to remember is that after the election in 2016, there was this huge pendulum swing where all of these people got activated, and there was this huge shift, and he lost the House in those midterms, correct? Did he lose the House and the Senate? No, he just lost the House. And then we saw the pendulum. What?
I'm sorry. Yeah, just the House.
Just the House, right? Then the pendulum swung even harder when he lost the White House, the Senate, and the House. And Dobbs activated a whole swath of people too, where those midterms were not a red wave. I think, unfortunately, Donald Trump has pulled himself away enough from the reality of Donald Trump that we endured for 4 years that people kind of memory hold so much of the reality of him, where he could say that like he had the best economy, and you're like, well, we were stockpiling toilet paper, and like I had 17 jars of peanut butter in my cupboard because I was afraid I'd never get peanut butter again. But everybody just memory hold all that shit. So we were too far removed from the truth of Donald Trump for that to register with people. And because that negative, like the economy sucks, America sucks, the immigrants are eating the cats and the dog stuff was so successful at becoming the true narrative when it wasn't the truth at all, Americans went with that one instead, and they were unhappy and they didn't know why. So I think the pendulum swung the other way. So I think what you're looking at right now, how the Democrats can, to your question, how we can sort of recapture this is that we got to summon this energy, this pendulum swing energy where we're like, holy shit, guys, let's remind ourselves of what the 4 years under Trump were like, but let's also brace ourselves for what's coming. And then when it does, let's stand up and fight and organize and get our coalition strong and broad and tough and loud and use that energy.
Wait. I don't mean to interrupt you, but 2 seconds ago, we're talking about how Trump will control the House, the Senate, the White House, and the Supreme Court.
Right.
So who's going to get up and who's going to get loud?
We are the people. We are
the people. Sure. Until like what Xi Jinping did in Tiananmen Square, where they turn around, they tell the National Guard, now go take that apart. In fact, I'm going to go one step even further. One thing that Trump turned around and said, that he thinks that maybe there should be a day of purge.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Remember from the movie The Purge, where you can go out and anybody that's not MAGA that is detrimental to their position of this country's place, that they can take them out. So who's gonna be the guy or the girl who's gonna lead this charge into what sounds to me almost like a guaranteed slaughter?
Well, extraordinary times require extraordinary measures, and I think, before you were saying that Republicans would stand up and refuse to sort of acquiesce and take the knee when he wants to be an autocrat, and I push back saying I don't think that's the case, and I am bracing for the worst possible scenarios. A lot of people tell me I'm being hyperbolic when I say I do think this could be the end of democracy. I do think that he'll be able to do whatever he wants because there's no mechanism in place to stop him, because the Supreme Court won't stop him, Congress won't stop him, the other courts won't stop him. The only way this stops potentially, and ultimately, no matter what, is us. So, like, honestly, we have to resist. We have to remember, who we are, and then we can't, what does Tim Snyder say? It's like, you can't obey in advance. You can't just give up and give in. There's tens of millions of people in this country who voted like I did, presumably like you did, which was for Kamala Harris, which was decency and democracy. Those people are still out there. They didn't just go away. We have to tap into that and remember who we are. And whatever he tries to shove down our throats and whatever they let him do, we have to use our voices no matter what he threatens. If I have to go to prison, I mean, I don't want to go to prison, but if I have to do, I don't
promise
care.
you don't.
No, I don't.
I promise you don't.
I don't, but I will die. I would rather die defending my children's rights and their futures, Michael, than I would acquiescing to watching someone relegate them to my daughter to just, a vessel for birth, and my son to some misogynistic.
I hear you on that one.
Yeah,
I hear you on that.
I don't want to come to that.
I have put myself front and center for this country in order to hold the man accountable for his own dirty deeds. And it has cost me everything. Everything. People have no idea how much this has harmed me personally, financially, my family. They have no idea. But I did it because, one, I was subpoenaed. Two, it was the right thing to do. The people had a right to know the truth. Plain and simple. And that wasn't embraced by the Harris campaign either. Do you know how many times I reached out to like these guys like a TJ Ducklow as an example? I reached out to the campaign. I reached out to so many of the surrogates. Hey, how is it that they are not running with the entire concept that I, Michael Cohen, am the first and only, as it stands today, political prisoner held by my own country because I refused to waive my First Amendment constitutional rights, and the whole fucking thing was orchestrated by the Trump administration. Okay? Did they embrace any of that? Do you really want me to get up there and turn around and say, the reason I fight so hard, because I don't ever want to see what they did to me happen to you, because it is emotionally, physically exhausting. It wrenches your soul. It sucks the fucking life out of you. And I don't want to see that happen to anybody else. So look, I just want to be, and maybe I'm being naive and stupid, and I may end up in a couple of months, turning around and saying, holy shit, when I was on with JoJo, my friend JoJo from Jersey, boy, was I naive and stupid. I may. Or he may end up as a 79-year-old man saying, I got exactly what I wanted and what I needed. I will not be held accountable for any of this litigation against me. No accountability. I'm going to be able to make as much money as I possibly want. I could be the richest man in the world tomorrow. I am by far the most powerful man in the world. All right. Maybe I'm going to put the right people. Maybe I'm going to put the right people in. Maybe we're not going to take this vitriolic attitude. Maybe we'll try to reunite the country. Maybe. Here's the problem. Maybe not. The thing is, none of us know because we're just guessing.
No, I love you, Michael. And I, unlike the Democratic, Big D Democratic Party, do see the value in including you in the coalition and having you in our tent, because I think that is what we need, is a diversity of voices. But we also need people who put country first, and that is what you do and have done. And I appreciate you for that. And I've told you that. I think it is an important relationship to have, and I think your story is an important one to tell. And I think that they have a really big tent and a little tiny door sometimes, and that needs to change because we can't grow if it doesn't. But to your point about what we don't know and what we do know, what we can hope he'll do versus what we can hope he won't. I wish you know him better than I do. Obviously, I don't know him at all. I've actually never seen him in real life, which is actually a good thing for me. But of all the things that he's ever promised and never delivered on, you could take a million things: ending the opioid crisis, bringing back manufacturing jobs, building the wall, or, the cost of prescription drugs, making America great, whatever it is. He never delivered on any of that shit, right? Like Ma and Pa Maggot don't give a shit. He didn't do any of it. He used our military money to build some of the wall. But what he really does try hard to do is the retribution shit. And you are also a walking testament to that, because he was successful in so much of what he wanted to do, and probably was still constrained by other people who said, you can't go further than that, which I don't even know what further than that would look like, but I'm not going to rule it out. And so you are a testament to him pushing the boundaries of his capacity to do something illegal, to seek revenge against those who have wronged him. And so my expectation, and he was able to do that, by the way, with Democrats in charge of parts of, the mechanisms of power. He was still able to do that. So my expectation is that his impulses, which have, he can't check, will lead him to wanting to do the things that he has said he wants to do, which is Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi and anybody who's ever spoken out against him, Hillary Clinton, being arrested. I don't know.
Milley, Vice President Pence.
And you can't shove it all down the American people's throat all at once, because it would cause absolute chaos. But if he does these things in little incremental steps where you just start degrading everything, that's how democracy dies. It dies from the inside. It doesn't die from the outside in anymore. It doesn't die from violent military coups. It dies when the wrong people get their hands on the inside, the guts of the thing, and then they destroy it from within. And we handed every key to the person who wants to rip out the guts of democracy and has the tools and the lack of accountability or oversight to do it. And the Supreme Court has told him that he can do whatever he wants insofar as it's an official act. So I'm not optimistic that he might not do the worst things possible.
Yeah, I maybe optimistic's not the right word for me either. Maybe just hopeful.
Yeah,
maybe
I
don't know. Maybe I'm just being blindly, stupidly naive. But I don't have that crystal ball, and I hope for the future of this country, for my children, God willing, one day grandchildren or great grandchildren, if I should live long enough to see it. I hope that he's going to think a little bit maybe about his legacy and not take his worst impulses and try to make them a reality. I believe on day number 1, he's going to pass, whether via executive order or by some mandate, the immigration roundup. There's no doubt in my mind he intends to do that. And I think he's going to go after the low-hanging fruit. You're never going to get 10 million people. I mean, that's like a 4-year process. So it's not even physically possible, not to mention, they're not just going to. I don't know if you saw some of the racist things that went out to the black community, all right, by MAGA and so on, where they were telling them to report to the farm for their slave work. I mean, it's as grotesque as the DM that I got from that young lady. I don't believe that people are just going to say, oh, yeah, I got a letter from President Donald J. Trump today saying report to internment camp 233, for deportation with whatever you can, one bag that you can carry. All right. Children don't get a bag. And you're like, get the fuck out of here. Come get me. And then you're going to start to see real violence in this country because, people aren't really prepared to take that kind of shit. But I also want to turn around and ask you about the youth vote because it didn't go exactly the way that we had thought it was going to go, nor did it go to the full extent that the Harris campaign thought that it was going to go. Completely misread the tea leaves there because a lot of the reports, the post-election polling indicates a decrease in youth turnout compared even to 2020. Seriously? All I know is all the information that I have been given over the course of Kamala's campaign is that there's never been more youth activity in that campaign than right now at this exact moment in time, with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of young people from colleges all over the country all joining as supporters of the campaign. What specific strategies do you think that the party needs to implement to, again, reinvigorate this key demographic? Because I've said it on this show, my YouTube channel, Michael Cohen Show, on my everywhere that I go. I've constantly said that Gen Z could be the ultimate decider in this election, but they failed. What do you think?
Well, that's just, historically, it's low turnout for youth voters, right? That's historically just true, empirically true. We have a couple of issues in this particular case. First of all, a lot of them did not feel like this process was fair because they didn't pick Kamala. They didn't want Joe. They thought that they should be able to pick someone else. That was something that a lot of them felt. We also have Gaza and the situation in Gaza, which I believe has been selectively, targeted in terms of outrage. I'm not saying that what's happening in Gaza is right. It is an atrocity, but there are lots of atrocities happening all over the world, and no one's talking about them. But that was a disqualifier for a lot of young voters who aren't fully informed, but take what they hear and see on TikTok, and that's the be all and everything for them. And so they didn't engage in this election and they didn't vote. I think a long-term strategy that I've been trying to raise the alarm on to what you're talking about is that we're not raising American citizens to be good citizens from day one. From the minute they enter school, we have a little bit of social studies in 5th grade, and then we have some civics stuff in the middle of high school at some point, and then maybe there's a civics test or something. People who come here and become citizens know everything about how it works and how to be a citizen. But to be a true democracy, we the people need to be involved. And kids in school, myself and you included, probably, we come out of high school and we're like, how does this all work? I kind of know what the Electoral College is, but I kind of don't. I admit, and I majored in communications, politics, and law. I didn't know. I couldn't name more than probably 10 of our presidents in any chunk of order at 28, 19 years old. And I think that what I'm trying to say here is not just teaching them civics and what it means to be an American citizen, but getting them excited and involved and understanding that even if they don't want to do politics does them. Even if they don't understand that, if they have a basketball net that's ripped down in the middle of their town at the court, that if they want to get that shit fixed, they got to go. It's politics, right? It's government. Like we need to get people to understand from a very young age in this country that it's part of their responsibility and duty, if they want to shape the world they want to have, that they have to get involved. And I think that starts at a very basic level in terms of education, but I think you can get kids involved and excited when you show them how they can apply these things too. And I know that sounds like, crazy off the top of my, out of this, a bigger lift, but I think fundamentally that's a really big problem, because young voters, they do want more progressive things inherently, right? They're more idealistic. They haven't been weathered down by taxes and time and age and mortgages. They're very idealistic, and those idealistic notions are how you get change and how you make and how progress happens.
Modern diet makes it really difficult to keep things in balance. I mean, extra sugar, it's just found in so many foods. And no matter how hard I try, I'm just not eating as much fiber as I want to. While getting enough fiber is a challenge in itself. By drinking sugar to fiber every day, your microbiome gets more of what it needs and less of what it doesn't, which leads to a more balanced microbiome, and that's the key to a healthy gut. One stick pack of sugar to fiber will help you get a daily dose of fiber from the foods that you've already eaten. So here's what I do. Every day, I simply put a pack of sugar to fiber in my water bottle. I mean, you can't even tell that it's in there. And I love knowing that I'm supporting my gut health with this routine. Sugar to fiber, it's the newest product from ZBiotics. They also have, get a load of this, they also have a pre-alcohol probiotic that's available to purchase to help with rough mornings after drinking. So, go right now to zbiotics.com/mea culpa and use code mea culpa at checkout for 15% off any ZBiotics probiotic. ZBiotics has a 100% money back guarantee. So if you're not satisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. And thank you, ZBiotics, for sponsoring this episode. Okay, I need to tell you about Tommy John. When you wear Tommy John, as I am right now, you're much more comfortable, so you can do everything better. Like do this ad. I mean, it's time to up your game with Tommy John underwear. Tommy John's stylish underwear has dozens of comfort innovations. So for example, they have a supportive contour pouch. They're breathable, lightweight, and they have moisture-wicking fabric with four times the stretch of competing brands. These are just a few of my favorite things about Tommy John. I love it, and I know that you will too. With over 20 million pairs sold and thousands of 5-star reviews, guys everywhere love their Tommy Johns. So here's the thing. I've been trying different brands of trunks for years, and none of them are even in the same universe as my Tommy Johns. Tommy John fabrics, they keep you 2 to 3 times cooler, and they dry 4 to 5 times faster than regular cotton, which makes them perfect for travel. So go right now and shop Tommy John right now for huge savings and get 25% off your first order at TommyJohn.com/Cohen. Save 25% at TommyJohn.com/Cohen. See site for details.
So I think combining the idealism of youth with exciting them, but also making them understand that it's inherent and in their duty as Americans to get involved. That's what I think. I don't think it's going to be a concert. I don't think it's going to be a podcast. I don't think it's going to be an initiative. We've tried all of that and it hasn't worked. So there's something systemic that's wrong. And I think that's what it is.
You're 100% correct, because, while I was on certain campuses and speaking to youth, I was blown away how little that they understand about what this country is going through. Talk about, for example, as I was explaining to one, the economic concerns that they should be understanding, that it's basically impossible for a young person to afford a house. Who was the candidate that turned around and said, I want to give like a $50,000 stipend to everyone that's going to buy a house? What if the house is $100,000? Think about it. even having a certain type of job, you can afford that. You can afford that first home, and you get that one-time $50,000 credit. You are now part of the American dream, home ownership. But that didn't even work too, despite the fact that economic issues dominated the election cycle. All right. And the funny thing is, despite the fact that there was no plan and there was no real discussion by Trump's team, they nevertheless capitalized on the frustrations and the grievances about inflation and job insecurity, despite the fact that we have the lowest unemployment in like the last 120 years. This is another thing that the Democratic Party must improve in its messaging around these economic issues if they're going to appeal to not just the young voters, the Gen Zers, but the working class voters as well. Somehow or another, Trump's team did it without even saying anything.
Yeah. But like, there's a certain disadvantage to being the party in power, because that's where people lay the blame, right? So you got this guy that comes out of a resort in Florida talking about how the government is failing you, and you only look at the government that's supposed to be serving you, and that's where you're going to lay the blame. And he can say nothing about his own policies. He said, by the way, childcare was not expensive, which is insane to me, because childcare, literally, my choice when my son was born was to choose to pay my salary in childcare a week or to stay home. But he said, childcare wasn't expensive. But I just think, people were blaming, it was easy to blame the serving administration for all that ailed them, even though things were not actually that bad, even though their wages were up and unemployment was down, the GDP was up. They don't understand that stuff. They look at a pizza and they're like, my fucking pizza is $22. Why are my eggs $9? That's what they look at, and they lay blame what they think the blame belongs. By the way, a lot of them laid the blame for Dobbs at Biden's feet because they didn't understand, because he was in power when it was overturned. So they're like, well, that's Biden's fault, clearly. And then Trump says, I wouldn't do a federal ban. It's up to the states. And they're like, see, he wouldn't do a federal ban. Like, there's all of this. There is an advantage of him not being in power, being removed from power. But they're also, remember, we're talking about a generation, these new voters, they loved, look, not all of them, but a lot of them did not think COVID was such a bad time. My son's 15. He's going to be a first-time voter in the next election. God willing, there is one. He will tell you, and his friends will too. They sat and played video games all day long. COVID was fucking awesome for them. They didn't understand. This is a generation, a lot of us, the bulk of the voting population right now, that doesn't understand true adversity, that doesn't understand what it really is to be put upon them, what it really is to struggle, what it really is to worry that another country is gonna destroy you. Nobody really under a certain age, and that age is advanced, understands what that's like. So they can think in these hypotheticals, but like the real threat is not palpable to them unless they live it. And what I believe in, Michael, here's my hope, and I don't want to wish against him to be a successful president because I'm scared of what that looks like. But my hope in a certain way is that he does what he says he's going to do and what he's promised, and that he drives all of the immigrants to a point where the GDP sucks. We can't afford eggs are $18 because nobody's doing the jobs. And then there's no public schools, and shit sucks so bad where everyone goes, what have we done? Where all the autism parents are like, wait a minute, he really ended my kid's access to special services? My child needs those. Sorry. People need to feel put upon in the way that I think he will put upon them, so that they understand once again, like they did in 2020, I don't want that guy anywhere near
me. And that's why I'm trying desperately to remain hopeful, because I think in the back of his mind, or at least there are some people that will come to him and say, you do realize if you do that, the blueberries that you eat every morning, or the strawberries that Melania eats in the morning or has with her oatmeal, that basket is going to be $28, not $8, which is still a ton of money for fucking strawberries, right? But $28 because there's nobody picking them. And the people that are picking them, you have to pay them the minimum wage requirements, and you have to give them health care, and you got to give them workers' compensation, and so on.
But do you?
So you.
But on Project 2025, you don't.
Who's going to do the job?
Right. Well,
labor.
Michael, my brain goes all sorts of places here, right? So, like, because we've all studied history to enough of an extent where we can see how when democracies fall in the worst case scenarios, this is the sort of thing that happens where it doesn't. I mean, just take a look at a lot of countries, right? We take a look at Iran. Take a look at trying to think Venezuela, places like that. I just think, right, Hungary. Yeah, I think if you really, again, in Project 2025, a lot of those workplace protections are going to be dismantled. And I think people have to sort of understand that some of the things that we could count on, like insurance and wages being fair and all of that, and being able to be paid for the hours you work and all that, like that stuff is largely going to be dismantled.
Yeah.
And so they're not going to have the immigrants to pick the strawberries anymore. They're still going to go up in price no matter who picks them, if it's not them. But they're going to force somebody to do it. Somebody in this caste system is going to be at the bottom, and these fuckers who voted for him, a lot of them are going to be at the bottom, and they're going to be like, "Oh, you're lucky to pick strawberries, bro."
So let me then bring this up, because this is the whole concept of nationalism, and it's another area in schools that I think we fail our children with. I grew up in a predominantly Jewish, but it was a very mixed area as well in Long Island. The neighborhood was completely mixed as well, and so were the schools. My school, which was a private school, they never really did much in history class on World War II from the Jewish perspective, meaning the Holocaust. Yeah, we talked about World War II, and we talked about the Luftwaffe and the bombings in London, and how Hitler moved into France and from Germany and Poland and Italy and so on and so forth. Trump, and again, I can't figure this out to save my life. His messaging continuously leaned heavily into this nationalistic ideology, America first, which resonated, and again, I don't understand it, with young and certain voter groups. What do Democrats need to do to address or to counteract the rise, right? To counteract the rise of this ideology that guarantees to destroy our country.
So I want to go back to something that you brought up a while back, which was that DM that you got. Because what I recognize in a DM like that, or in my friend Tara Setmayer getting the most vitriolic, horrible, hateful, slur-ridden emails I've ever seen, is that it's part of the process, right? It's like part of the playbook is to, let me just back up quickly and say, when I was a student and learning about the Holocaust, I used to ask every teacher I had, can someone explain to me how the regular German people went along with this? Can someone please tell me what were the regular German people doing? Someone please tell me how all of those regular dudes could be able to shoot human beings in a ditch like that. Someone tell me how is that possible? And I never really got that answer because they couldn't answer it. And when I look back at how these things happen and how atrocities like that are able to take hold, what happens so often is they're able to get people to a place where a young girl can dehumanize you to such an extent that she no longer sees you as a human being worthy of any kind of humanity, and can say the most awful things to you like she did in that text. And I know that's a long journey between her text and the Holocaust, but it's really not. Because if you can get people to that place where they can dehumanize to that point where they can send somebody that kind of a message, or they can, lean into being Nazis, etc., then you can bring them along to almost anything and anywhere. And that's what happened in Germany in the Holocaust. That's what has happened all over this country, in Russia and parts of Asia, etc. So I don't know what the Democrats can do to stop that, other than calling it out all the time, because that's what we're up against, right? And that's very powerful, because human beings instinctually, like, they want to both be part of something like a group or a cult or whatever it is that works for them, to belong to a sorority or a fraternity, et cetera, but they also kind of like, they just want like what they need, and they don't want to help somebody else if they don't have to, and it's terrible, but like it has to be fostered to have humanity. That has to be fostered, and it has to be encouraged, and if you do the opposite, that's really powerful and difficult to stop. So I just think that we're up against something much larger than just, what do our, thinking like, what do our posters and, commercials say, and what do we say when we go to college campuses? I think like this is really much bigger than anything we could conceive of happening in this country before, in our lifetimes, probably. And I think the Democrats need to call it out, and need to call it what it is, and need to constantly say, like, this is the road you're headed down. We've seen this before. This is the playbook we've seen throughout history, and it's terrifying.
It's been seen before. Unfortunately, as I said, that a lot of schools don't teach, for example, about the Armenian genocide. Right. Seriously, what about what about Darfur? It goes on today. With this sort of nationalistic behavior, and it does need to be called out. It just needs to be called out in a way where you're able to keep the attention, and to make it a part of the curriculum. They just don't.
When a lot of people are going to start feeling the reality of it pretty soon, Michael, because people are going to be like, wait, I was supposed to be in that group. Wait, my child was supposed to be in that group. Why am I? They're going to feel it, and then it's going to hit home harder, and then we'll have a choice to make.
Well, all I can say is I hope not. I desperately hope not, but unfortunately, I don't have a lot of faith either. I'm so torn right now, as I'm sure so many of my listeners are. Jojo, thank you, my love. Great to see you, as always. Don't be a stranger. It's been a while. I know everybody's been out there trying to do their thing, but let's try to find some time, because there's a lot of strategy that the Democratic Party needs going forward. And I think your voice, with your million followers, is truly needed. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And if I could just say one last thing, like I said to you via text, like I'll always have your back, and I appreciate you. And I just want everybody out there on your hope thing. I'm also hopeful. I'm never going to lose hope. And you know what gives me hope? It's everybody like you. It's the people who listen to your show and watch your show. We are still out there, and we can do this together. And that gives me hope. We give everybody hope. That's how I feel.
Amen to that. Thanks, Jojo.
Thanks, Michael.